We're pitching up a channel, bringing smiles to the world. We're hitting first base. Marty Lurie with friends. Home run, you know the ways and the trends, the stories all with the match of the block. It's Marty and friends. Marty and friends.
I love it. All right, that was Ruby Barmay with our introduction, and I love it. That is my granddaughter. She's an 11th grader and just a great singer. Wrote the whole song herself uh, and performed it. So I'm really happy to have. It makes me laugh and smile every week. But nice to have everybody with you. Marty Lurie and friends talking baseball. We're joined today by Kyle Haynes, a very, very important part of the Giants' front office structure. He's the senior director of player development. And of course, our good friend Glenn Kuiper is here too. So, guys, nice to have you with us. Kyle, how are you?
I'm doing great, Marty, in Arizona and ready to go. So good to see everybody and talk baseball.
Yeah, actually, for the minor leaguers, of course, player development so important. We could talk about the major league team all day long, but you got to get the players up to the big leagues. When do things start for you down here in Arizona with the minor leaguers?
Well, we crank it up big time in mid-January, or even early January. We got stuff going on at the Papago facility pretty intently and intense, and a lot of the guys are reporting on their own. But we have a lot of organized development camps, et cetera, starting in the middle of January, and we kind of wrapped one up here to give a few days off before reporting as a bigger group. But people have been working hard and trying to get them in a good spot to report for spring training, and develop them individually.
Good. Hey, Glenn, you jump in here. We'll try to go 1-1 so we don't step on each other too much. So go ahead.
Well, I just want to say one thing about Kyle is I met him last year, but I did not know him. But I got his cell phone number when I was down in spring training, and I had told some of the Giants front office people, listen, I'd really like to meet Kyle, and I'd like to go see him at the new complex. And so I texted Kyle, have never met him before. I've heard a lot about him. And he could not have been nicer. He gave me a full tour of the new Papago complex. And I spent a couple hours with him. And I just wanted Kyle to know that I always really appreciated that. And so much that I'm going back there this spring just to spend a couple hours there, because it's so much fun. It's such a beautiful place. But you have all these kids, all these prospects playing in games, and it's just kind of fun to walk around and watch what's going on. And I wanted Kyle to know I appreciated how kind he was to me last year during spring training.
Cool. Well, Kyle, let me ask you this as we get started here. Player development is so important. As I say, you got to get guys ready to come up to the big leagues. The last few years, we've seen guys come up maybe before they were ready. There's the old saying, when the guy's up here, you want him to stay here. You don't want him going back. So where are we in that development stage? Because a lot of the guys really were up here last year, and most of them stayed up.
Yeah, I think if we were to flash back 12 months ago and say that Tyler Fitzgerald and Elliot Ramos had the years they had, and they weren't even really around the team in April at all, I think we'd be ecstatic and thinking that we had a better year than maybe what we had. But I think something we could be proud of is that when people were needed, even late in the year, Grant McCray, I'll be the first to admit, maybe he should have spent the entire year in AA or maybe a little bit in AAA, but we needed to be more athletic up the middle with Jung-Hoo Lee getting hurt, and he was ready to step in as an athletic middle of the field player as we needed that on our major league team. And I think kudos to Grant and all those who helped him as well, because, it's really a role that probably he was rushed towards for sure. But, there was some highlight games in there. I mean, he hit some long homers. He did some dynamic things. But you also saw why the minor leagues is needed and more at-bats are needed before someone's asked to be a crucial part of a winning team is all those players and more that I haven't even mentioned will show you the glimpses, but they'll also show you where they still need to learn. And development still continues at the major league level, and we're fortunate to have those coaches we have at the major leagues who value that as well, that they still have to develop and they're not a finished product.
Kyle, with Buster taking over and Randy Wynn taking over the minor league part of it, I know you're working close with those guys. And just in reading some of the things that they have said, I got the feeling that maybe they wanted to make some changes as far as maybe leaving guys in places a little bit longer, maybe not rushing them to the big leagues unless they absolutely need it due to injuries or that type of thing. Am I reading that correctly with, Buster and Randy and some of the new ideas that they may be throwing out there?
Yeah, I think so. I think in a perfect world, we make everybody defeat every level of play and not just rush them through. I think, one part of that is keeping our major league team healthy, because essentially your AA and AAA team, especially your AAA team, they're going to be called upon. And we have so many young players, especially position players on the 40-man roster, that we don't have a lot of flexibility to go pick up some veteran and put them on the 40 without designating a young player. So when you have a lot of young players on the 40, keeping our major league team healthy and on the field and productive is going to be a big part of our young players' development also in the minor leagues. So we're not asking them to come up and fill a role just due to circumstance. When your 40-man roster's thinner, you can maybe DFA somebody, or you have an open spot and go claim somebody else, or call up a more veteran AAA type player. But the Luis Matos, even Wade Meckler, Marco Luciano, some of their call-ups have even been just because we needed what they had and they were already on the 40-man roster, so to speak. So I think injuries at the major league level is going to play a part in that. But also, yeah, we would love to see that. I think every team would love to see that and make guys take their lumps in the minor leagues and play through them and learn from them at each level, defeat each level, move up, and hopefully not get to the big leagues and have to take their lumps in the major leagues.
The one area that I look at is the catching with Patrick Bailey, who really had a great year last year in August, couldn't buy a hit, but he is obviously a Gold Glover and really a fabulous catcher, but you need some depth behind him. Well, where are we as an organization with the Giants catching wise? I know there's Sam Huff. When I hear Sam Huff, I think of the linebacker from the Giants, Jimmy Brown. But Sam Huff is there, and of course Murphy had the bad knee last year. So where do you stand with the catching?
Yeah, I think you mentioned a kind of a key camp thing to look for right there is Tom Murphy. How's the knee coming back? He had the injury a couple of years ago. This guy was really good, especially versus left-handed pitching, which I think would be great to give Patrick some days off on the left-handed pitching side. But he did have a pretty significant injury. Didn't play a lot last year. Sam Huff, a lot of power, seems like a great kid. He was here in January working out with us, and he's been acclimated to work well. Seems like a stand-up, great human being, and got a lot of right-handed power too. So those are nice options to have behind Patrick. Patrick can't catch every game. Wish he could, but I think he's last couple of years he's ran out of gas. So maybe taking care of him a little better early in the year would really help keep him fresh late. And obviously, to his credit, it's never hurt his defense, but I think we've seen it on the offensive end in late in the seasons. But I think, I'm going to throw out a little bit of a personal favorite of mine, Max Stassi. I had his brother, Brock Stassi, he was in AAA with us, and also Northern California. A lot of cool tie-ins there with the Stassis. And Max was a really good player. He had a lot of injuries. Mm-hmm. He's over those. I saw him as recently as well. Excited to see what he's like, kind of post not playing for a couple of years, but he was really good for a while, big prospect. And obviously I'm biased. His brother Brock was a stand-up human for us in AAA in 2019. So if he's anything like his brother, which I've met him and he is, I'm rooting for him as well. And then we could keep going down the list, but on the minor league prospect side,
it's good.
I don't know if we have anybody prospect worthy that's going to be close to this year. I think it's going to be on this group that we know. You could insert Logan Porter in there, who's a familiar face who we acquired last year from the Royals for a brief time. But Adrian Sugaste is intriguing. But down the list, we have intriguing prospects, but I don't see them ready for 2025 personally. But maybe somebody surprises us.
You know what, Marty? I think too. We talk about this Giants roster and what we think they need, and what they've added, and do they need another hitter? Do they need a first base somewhere? But very seldom is it talked about, because it's not as sexy, I guess, is a backup catcher. I think the Giants, and I hope it's Murphy, because Kyle was right. A couple of years ago, I saw Murphy in Seattle, and he was a pretty good player. He just did not look great last year, and then he got hurt. But I think the backup catcher thing for the Giants is very, very important, because, listen, Patrick, you're right. He's terrific, but he's probably not going to catch 30, 35 games. Casale was fine, but he wasn't going to hit a lot. I think whoever is the backup catcher, they need some production from that person. Offensively, they did not get a lot of that last year. And of all the different spots that we talk about on the roster, that one doesn't get talked about a lot, but I think it's maybe more important than a lot of people think. Who is going to be your backup catcher? Because it's still, even though the backup, he's still going to be out there 30, 35 games. And there just was not a lot of production from the backup catcher spot last year. And Bailey had, a slump where, I felt bad for the guy. Like, nothing he could do could get a hit. But that's an area that I think is important. One of those guys that Kyle mentioned, and Murphy's got the contract and all that, but those other guys too. One of those guys needs to step up and have a good year as the backup catcher. I think it's more important than people think. And I like Stassi too. I mean, Stassi was good enough, Kyle, to, if you remember when he was with the Angels, he had a 3-year contract. They gave him a 3-year deal, and I know he had some stuff going on. But I agree, pretty good player, pretty good catcher. So I wouldn't forget about him, when spring training starts, because he'll be in that mix.
Is he ready to go, Kyle, Stassi?
Yeah, he's ready to go. I saw him, and he said he feels best he's felt in years. So yeah, that'll be an interesting battle. And I totally double down what Glenn said there. We need some more production, and that goes back to that middle of the diamond being productive, for the Giants to be productive, and that catchers, even the backup, if they catch 35 times, we can't punt 35 games, of offense and even defensive production. So we got to get something out of that.
Okay, well, that's something we'll look for in spring training. Part of the theory of the show, the little tease on the show was, is this it? With Willie Adames and Verlander, is this actually it? And it made me think of Bryce Eldridge, because every time you talk to someone about the Giants, you talk about this kid. And you know what the fan base will be saying. We want to see him on opening day in San Francisco. So where are we with Bryce Eldridge right now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm biased towards everybody, so you always got to look through a little bit of some of my words. I love Bryce Eldridge. He's so mature for a kid. I think, Marty, I know when you interact with him in spring training, if you get a chance, you're going to be impressed with his maturity level. He's going to be a great Giant for a long time. I shouldn't throw a private conversation, but a few hours ago I had a conversation with the professor, Ron Wotus, on the phone, and me and him broke down Bryce Eldridge a little bit. But I know he's the hot name, but he's going to need some development time too. And we don't want it to fall into the kind of earlier conversation where he gets up and has to take his lumps in the big leagues. He still has barely played above A ball. And, he's new to first base because he pitched and DH'd a lot in high school. So there's still going to be a learning curve there to be that player that we have made him out to be in our head. But I think when he is ready, I think the Giants fans and players in the locker room are going to be ecstatic to have him as a part of our organization. I'm hoping we can break him in, hitting 6th or 7th and let him ease his way in his first year or so. And then, ease his way up to that middle of the order force that everyone's probably hoping he is on day one. And, I don't want to say pump the brakes on that, but that's a lot to ask of any young hitter, especially a 19, 20-year-old kid.
Yeah, we did pretty good, Marty. We didn't talk about Bryce Eldridge for the first 13 minutes of the show. That's pretty good. And, I was doing the Giants fantasy camp a couple of weeks ago, and a couple of the guys that were down there, one at a time, but Travis Ishikawa was down there. And Kyle, I know he's one of your guys, one of the coaches, and he saw a lot of Eldridge because he was the hitting coach in San Jose. Correct, Kyle? Travis
That's
was?
Correct. Yep.
And,
yep, correct.
And he's, I said, hey, okay, you saw this kid every day. what stood out? Obviously, that's what you like to find out, but not so much home runs and all. And he said, listen, he said, the thing that stood out to me about Bryce Eldridge is how mature he was for his age. I mean, this is a very young man, but Travis said, he carried himself like a 21 or 22-year-old kid, as far as, making outs and how he carried himself and did he keep his head up. And Travis said that was the thing that stood out to him, on top of obviously the statistics. But he's a very, very mature young man, not only physically but mentally as well, which he said that's going to carry him a long ways, and it's going to help him achieve success at a very young age, hopefully at the big league level. And the other guy that was at the camp with me as well was JT Snow, and from what I understand is the Giants they're bringing JT down to spring training to work, but the specific reason they're bringing him down there is to work with Bryce Eldridge, and we know how great JT was. He was as good at first as we've ever seen. So I think that'll be kind of fun to watch early in spring training too, Marty and Kyle, is watching JT Snow work with Bryce Eldridge, because from what we all understand, Kyle, Eldridge, there's some work to be done defensively yet, but he's going to get a lot of help from one of the best. I thought that was kind of cool, because it's a very popular Giants player in JT Snow coming back and helping a guy that, could be the next star player for San Francisco.
Look, we got so many guys coming back. They could put another roster out there of the whole team. Come on, they brought everybody back. I'm waiting for Bumgarner to pitch opening day here. How does that work for you? Do they get in the way? I remember when Jeff Kent used to be here and a couple other people. Remember, they used to come down. But man, how do you deal with this? Because you got a lot of people to work with here.
It is, yeah. I mean, you're always trying to figure out a way to say, well, how much? Because every guy wants to be involved differently. That's what I found, and everybody's got a unique personality. So you're always trying to involve them to the level that really they're comfortable as well. And they're trying to build relationships with players or staff as well. So that part, I think the one thing we're very fortunate, our alumni care. They got to care more than any alumni in baseball. I mean, maybe I'm biased towards that. You mentioned obviously Ishikawa and people like that. He was teammates with me 20 years ago, believe that or not. These aren't just alumni to people like me, or even I'm sure you guys. These are part of our family and who we really care about, and they care about the Giants, and they're competitive too. And I guarantee if we put them on the field, alumni game versus our guys, they would do everything they could to win at their ages too. I could see Sergio Romo and these guys scrapping and clawing, trying to beat our guys. But
they just can't run to first base. That's the problem.
That could be a problem. So
yes, trust me, I know that.
But I mean, you think about JT Snow. I mean, it's fantastic. He's coming into spring training, work with Bryce. You mentioned Travis Ishikawa. By the way, those are two phenomenal first basemen there. But Will Clark has worked a lot with Bryce in the fall league. I mean, you guys know his passion. He goes to all of our affiliates, and he's all in the dugout. He's worked with Bryce and Eugene, and he worked with him in the fall league a lot. One thing that teams tend to do and overlook is they hire an infield instructor and just say, you figure out how to teach first base. I think we're very fortunate. We have not just great infield instructors. You can point to Ron Wotus, alumni Joe Panic, people like that who are around. We also have first base kind of special skilled coaches that other teams don't have, and their passion is unmatched as well. So we know Bryce is going to get and has gotten some great instruction, and now we just got to get him experience as well during the game and pregame.
Hey, Kyle, let me ask you one more question about Eldridge. I mean, where is he a little short defensively? Is it just getting more reps, or, I mean, is there any concern? He's obviously athletic enough. Where do you see the small things at first base that he needs to get better at?
He needs a lot more reps, in-game and pregame reps. Athletically moving, you're not going to see anything that stands out poorly. All of his movements are pretty good. You could fine-tune some of his ready position. He's 6'7", so obviously He's got to get a little bit lower in his stance than most people. And even when he approaches the ball, he's got to get down a little more. But the throwing's fine. Everything's fine to the look. But just when that ball enters that sweet spot of your glove, and you know what it's like, Glenn, when the ball enters your sweet spot and you got it secure and it doesn't rattle around, being able to do that every single time is so key to being able to not disrupt the timing and rhythm of a play, whether it's a PFP play or a double play. And Omar Vizquel, I remember taking ground balls with him. He told me every play is like a dance, you know, it's got its own song. And, you know, I thought that resonated with me. But if you don't secure that perfectly in that sweet spot of your glove every time, it kind of disrupts the timing of your exchange and your footwork. And I see that a lot with him, where the ball kind of just rattles around inside of the glove. And I think that'll come with just more experience fielding ground balls and short hops and top spin. You know, quarter infielders in the big leagues, 90% of the ground balls they get are hard top spun, like a tennis, you know, backhand or forehand that's just hooked really hard. And those are coming 100+ miles an hour. So those are things he's going to have to get more reps at.
Yeah. Reminds me of Moneyball, right, Glenn? When Billy says to Wash, yeah, make Hatterberg a first baseman, you know.
What do you say? Is it difficult? It's tremendously difficult.
It's true. It's true. You know, we got a bunch of questions here.
Yep.
One is a good one. Will the playing field in Sacramento have any effect on player development? How is that going to affect you guys?
That's a phenomenal question. I think the great answer is no. I did have a little nervousness about the AstroTurf, not from so much the heat perspective, because there was measures in. Obviously, that has been diminished. I was more concerned of our players getting called up, having played on turf in AAA, than called up to grass at Oracle. And with Oracle, the cooler temperature, we already have a little taller grass than, say, the Bermuda. But I don't see any issues at all. If anything, and I told Major League Baseball this, they've been phenomenal communicating through this process with at least me, that if they're going to let the A's and the Yankees and the Astros and the Mariners or whoever, if they're going to let them play on the field, we know that it's going to be a phenomenal first-class facility for us to play on as well. I was a little nervous development-wise thinking about our infielders playing on turf for 2-3 months and then having to play on grass. But that was my concern. But we didn't go that route, and we're going to be a natural surface, and it's going to be hopefully a phenomenal one.
Okay. All right. The other question is, they talk about backup infielders. Someone wants to know about Jose Iglesias, OMG. You know, he hasn't gone back to the Mets yet. But what about backup infielders here? Because when you look at the 40-man, you have Wisely in there, you got Schmidt in there, you got VR still in there. But what about the kids? Is there someone ready to break through? Remember the shortstop at San Jose who got hurt? Whoa, always liked that guy. He was pretty good. What do you got coming up infield-wise?
Yeah, I think who you're referring to is probably Averson Arteaga.
Right, that's right.
You know, he's missed the better part of last year almost due to the injury. And then 2 years ago, he had a little bit of a struggle adjusting to a tougher level, but he did fine. Yeah, I mean, with a huge year, maybe that guy factors in, but maybe he's probably more 2 years away in my judgment right now. And I'd echo Diego Velasquez, who's a middle infielder, really good bat to ball, only 20 in AA last year, really good switch hitter, bat to ball, line drives to all fields, high energy player. But I still feel like they're a little away. I think the wild card that you didn't mention, Marty, is a very nice find for us last year, Christian Koss, who he'll be in Major League camp.
From the A's, right, Glenn? I think from the A's. Yeah.
Well, he actually was a Red Sox.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we got him in a late, really small deal last year, and he's a really good glove man at shortstop. Hopefully we don't need him at short, because Willie Adames, we need him there as much as we can. But a really good glove man at short, good bat to ball. And then, you know, the kind of the players you mentioned, I think will be the backups there. And you know, internally, I think, you know, we could have some options come up, but I don't think they're going to be of a prospect pedigree as like we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I guess before Glenn jumps in here, the big name, of course, is Luciano. And you talk about player development. I guess he's on every page of the calendar of player development. And it'd be wonderful And I thought this with Ramos. I said, boy, I like the bat. I always liked the bat speed, even though he wasn't producing at the big league level. And Luciano, for me, is sort of the same. I like the bat. I just feel the bat's going to play at some point. So what about Luciano?
Yeah. I think we're going to see a heavy dose of outfield this year. I think you can look back at his very first report when he signed. I think they probably said he is going to end up in the outfield. It looks like we're going to be there this year. We gave it every opportunity to play in the infield, and it actually was trending up for a while, and we're getting better and better. And then I don't know what happened last year, but it just went south fast. And I think as he lost a lot of confidence in the infield, and I got to think that hurt his bat as well. I think some of the lack of confidence on defense. He's an incredibly sharp kid. So obviously he knows he was hurting the team on defense, and it just kind of compounded. But we're going to see him in the outfield. I think the one thing to keep an eye on, and I've told him on the phone, and when I see him the first day of camp, I'm going to tell him he's got to become more dangerous in the batter's box. Power hitters at all levels, high school, college, minor leagues, big leagues. As soon as you show you're powerful, you get pitched around. And I think that actually it made him too passive at the plate. This is not the aggressor that I used to see as he's climbed up to the big league level, even in AAA. He's very passive up there. But he's an aggressive hitter. That's when he's at his best. So
Okay.
I think he tried to maybe think too much that people were pitching around his power. He got passive. He started taking pitches that he should be driving. And we got to get him, much more of a lion in that batter's box and make him much more aggressive in there. And maybe we need to let him find what's too aggressive so he's dangerous. Because right now, I've just seen a passive version of him, and that was not the guy who became the prospect. And we need to get him back to being aggressive, dangerous, Marco in the batter's box.
Yeah, I thought even at the big league level and watching him, every time I'd see him take a fastball for a strike, even if it was early in the count, it was frustrating because you wanted to say, just let it rip, man. I mean, all the talent this kid has. But, I was thinking about these young outfielders, Marty and Kyle, and I was like, what's the best case scenario this year? And, I think Matos has a chance to make the team because they're looking, who's a fourth outfielder, right? I mean, you have Ramos, Lee, Yastrzemski, and then another outfielder needs to come into play somewhere. If that is Matos, and I think he probably has the best chance to be that guy. That's just my opinion, but I hope he gets to play a fair amount. I hate it when these young kids come up and then they just don't play a lot. I think it's unfair to them, and you're asking this kid to be a part-time player and at the age of 21. So if he does make the team, I hope he gets, he's not going to be out there every single day, but I hope he gets to play a lot. I think that would be important for him. But I was thinking, Kyle, you may have thought this too. Wouldn't it be great if you could get at Sacramento, Luciano in left field, McRae in center field, and if it's not Matos, maybe Meckler in right fielder, and you just get those guys, get them to stay healthy, get 450 at bats, and see where they're at the end of the year. I think that's a perfect scenario. If you're a Giants fan in the Giants organization, is letting these young outfielders, including Luciano, just play every day at Sacramento and learn how to stay healthy and get your 450 at bats. And then you may have something at the end of the year with these kids.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head. I stare at the rosters every day, looking how they're going to play out. And, we got 4 or 5, maybe even more guys who should be playing the outfield in AAA. And wherever they're at, that group that you mentioned, they got to be playing every day. I mean, maybe, like when I say every day, like they already have Mondays off in the minor leagues, like every game, 9 innings, go through all this library of experiences of running the bases, of facing different pitchers and pitch types, and, have a tough sidearm matchup so they learn what that's like. Whatever, all those experiences, they need them and to lean on them. But yeah, we need these guys when they're called up. I think sometimes now we're calling guys up with like 200 innings in the minor leagues. It used to be 400. we're calling guys up with 800, 900 at bats in the minor leagues. It used to be 1,500 to 2,000. And we've got to find a way to get 400 plus at bats out of that group you mentioned somewhere.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, well, the interesting thing for me is baseball today, everyone wants to get a utility guy. Well, we got Fitzgerald. You know, he could play short. He could play first. He could play right. He could play third. I mean, they want guys to play all over the place. How do you deal with that in player development? You want to get a guy and say, look, you're a shortstop. You're going to play short. We want you to be a great shortstop. And next thing you know, he's playing 7 different positions. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, Fitzgerald was that 2 years ago. The years are running together. We had to teach him center field like as fast as we could.
He never played it, yeah.
Yeah, and he was phenomenal. And then Casey Schmidt, I remember, here's a story, but we knew we were going to call him up about 5 days before we actually called him up. And it was like, hey, we need a second baseman. Get him ready to play second. I'm like, wait a minute. He's a third baseman we were teaching shortstop to. And now I got to teach him second. And you know, the team was in Oklahoma City. I won't forget it. I flew into Oklahoma City and I had Holbert Cabrera because it's raining in Oklahoma City. There's no pregame work. We can't even get on the field. It's tarped. And we're trying to play him at second base, and we're underneath the tunnel, and Holbert Cabrera is like inventing second base drills behind the dugout in the tunnel and the concrete, just inventing drills like a high school coach would in some hallway to get work in so we could teach him second base. And he had no idea he's getting called up, right? So we can't tell him that. But it was a full court press, and you got to do whatever you got to do. But, you know, ideally at the lower levels, guys focus on one position as much as they can, because if you end up practicing too many positions, you end up becoming very okay at a lot and not good at anyone in particular. And it takes a special bat to just be an okay defender at some position on the field. So I think at the lower levels, you really focus on one. And then as you move up, maybe you can add another one. But yeah, it's a challenge, especially when it happens late in their careers, because it's a full court press to teach them the ins and outs of a position. And then they're going to be on TV with, you know, 1 million people watching, 50,000 people in the stands, and the game's on the line, and a routine ball's hit to them, and you're praying that they don't butcher it.
I know. You know, what about Wisely and Schmidt? Are they kind of at a little bit of crossroads in their career right now? They haven't really settled in anywhere yet. And Schmidt had good bat at the end of the year, and Wisely had some interesting hits too. Yeah,
you know, based on the roster, the way it looks, I think Wisely has a great opportunity this year. We don't have a lot of lefty bats. A lot of the guys we're talking about are right-handed. So while, you know, the platooning, it's its own topic, you know, Wisely does have a look to mix in some lefties into this lineup if the pieces fall into place. So it's a big year for him. To your point, he's had some big hits. Yeah. And then I think Schmitty, you know, the tough part with Schmitty is, you know, he's such a phenomenal third baseman. I mean, he's maybe a Gold Glove caliber third baseman in his own right, but we already got that. So in some regards, he's being a utility player just because that's what the roster demands, not what's best for him in his career. Because he's a, you know, a Gold Glove caliber third baseman who's playing a very adequate short and second, and holding his own there. But you know, it's just tough when you have Matt Chapman at third, because we don't need a right-handed hitting third baseman. We've got that one for a long time tied up.
Yeah.
Kyle, I want to ask you about we're talking about position players, but I want to switch to some pitchers. What I know, the Giants are loaded with a lot of good young pitching prospects. We know about Harrison. We got a really nice look at Birdsong. They both look like they could be the real deal. There's some relievers that we see now that look like they're going to be quality big leaguers. But I've been wanting to ask you about 3 guys. One that we've heard a lot about, we've just never seen him in the big leagues, and that's Whisenhunt. I know he looks like the real deal. AAA last year, full year, which is important. You know, got knocked around a little bit, but that can happen in that league. With the full year in AAA he had last year, is he ready to pitch in the big leagues this year as a starter?
I think so. Yeah, I do. I'm a big Carson Whisenhunt fan. You know, I would like to think I'm pretty reserved and very, objective. I'm biased, but I always feel like I'm trying to pump the brakes. But Carson Wisnot's a really good left-handed starting pitcher. You look at the ERA, it doesn't look great on the surface, but when you compare it to the PCL average and what that league means, it's like arena baseball for pitchers. He had a lot of positives. This is a lefty with mid-90s fastball, an absolute plus changeup, which is kind of rare today. You'd probably see that more out of Johan Santana or Cole Hamels or someone. You really don't think of too many plus lefty changeups today like you used to. Good breaking ball. I mean, he's a good lefty starter, and I think Carson Wisnot could be an important part of this year's team. Personally, he's not on the 40-man roster, so that's a dynamic that's always in play. But I'm a big Carson fan. I think he could really pick us up big time this year if we need it. But maybe we don't need it either because we do have a lot of options already.
Marty, I got a couple other guys I want to ask Kyle about.
Yeah, go ahead.
We know about Landon Roop, who I love. I think he's going to be terrific. But what about Trevor McDonald? We saw him right at the end of the year last year. Not a lot of innings in the minor leagues. I know he's battled some injuries, but I asked around a little bit about Trevor McDonald, and everybody really likes him. Somebody said his stuff is a little bit like Logan Webb. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but I want to get your feelings on Trevor McDonald.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it's a power sinker, a lot of ground balls, incredible hard worker. I mean, you watch this guy work, and it's really impressive. The competitor, the worker, which brings back the Logan Webb comp a little bit. Combine that with the 92, 93, 94 mile per hour sinker. We've seen better than that from him in the past. I think the big difference between somebody like him and Webb is he's got this like a different arm action, kind of hides the ball a little more, whereas Webb, he's got the cleaner arm action. So, Webb, he's logged, close to 200 innings for a couple years in a row here. But I think we'll see, T-Mac probably do a little less than the workload than Webby's done, but it's a similar style of pitcher. A lot of grounders, a lot of strikes, and then can get a whiff when he needs it. But, he'll factor in at some point. I don't know if it'll be out of the pen or as a starter, but he can do either one.
I got one more for you, Marty. Sorry, I don't want to take over your show.
I have a list of all the Carsons.
I don't know.
I don't know Ramsdale, Seymour. I don't know any of them, so I'm anxious to hear this.
But I'm reading about a sleeper, Kyle. He's 26 years old, but terrific numbers in the minor leagues. Trent Harris. Tell us about him. I know he got to Double-A last year. Again, he's 26, so he's not a young guy.
Lefty.
What's that?
He's a lefty, right?
Righty.
No, he's a righty.
Righty.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I've been reading about him, and people are thinking, if is he a dark horse to maybe pitch out of the bullpen this year? Trent Harris is his name.
If you would have asked me for a sleeper and unsolicited, I would have brought his name up. So I'm glad you're on it, Glenn. Yeah, I mean, the way he pitched last year was dominance. And, it gave me a little bit of flashes because I was fortunate to be teammates and still really good friends with Sergio Romo, what he did to A-ball hitters. And it gave me flashbacks to that, what he did in A-ball, where it's a ton of whiff on multiple pitches. It's, little relieverish, I guess. He's definitely not a clear starter, but he's definitely not just a one-inning reliever either. But the strikeouts, the strikes, the competitor, the athlete, he was a two-way player in college. So, he kind of knows the game. I think his dad played in the major leagues as well. Somebody wants to fact check me on that one. But, he's got the bloodlines, the competitor, the athlete. He's got two nasty breaking balls, and it's mid-90s with ride and cut carry fastball. So, I mean, it fits the eye test. Yeah, 26, but it doesn't matter. If you're 36, 46, if you can get outs, if you're 95 cut carry, nasty breaking balls coming at you and pounding the strike zone, you can be any age.
Well, I look forward to seeing these guys now, in spring training.
Yeah.
Yeah, Evans came out of nowhere, really. He's an older pitcher, and he did a nice job last year. You're getting good reviews, both you guys, by the way. We have
Oh,
people who
thanks.
comment on this. Kyle, you're very easy to listen to, and Glenn, everyone's glad to see you. So they don't want to see me, but they like you guys apparently. Taylor Rogers is gone. So, of course, Eric Miller is on the roster, but there's no other lefty, in sight. So what are you going to do for lefties?
That's going to be a fun battle in camp too. I think we talked about the backup catchers, but that'll be a really interesting one. We signed some guys. Yeah, him to a minor league deal. You start looking at some of these, other lefties that we got, whether it be Antonio Jimenez, who some of these names, forgive me if we haven't announced them publicly. I'll break the news here, I guess. But to sign him to a minor league deal like a month ago, he has no major league time to my knowledge. Raymond Burgos we saw for 1 inning last year. Miguel Del Pozo, the former major leaguer, he's healthy after Tommy John. And I'm still excited to see Angel Chris Olivares pitch because we've seen this guy scraping 100 in the bullpen. And he's a former prospect of the Rockies. It's a minor. He signed with us last year, pitched a couple innings in Richmond. But that might be a late bloomer. I mean, he's only 24 going on 25, but he was a prospect with the Rockies as a starter. And we'll see. I mean, it's a lefty with an upper 90s arm. So we'll take those and see how it goes every day. So pretty good open competition is basically what I'm saying.
Okay. All right.
Kyle, I was curious. I wanted to ask you during the regular season. I know you even though players are at their affiliates, there's still a lot going on. At the complex there at Papago where you're at all the time. How often and I know it's the first year with Buster, but even the people you worked for before, how often do they check in with you to see what's going on at Papago? I know you got injured guys down there and you have the Arizona leagues and all that, but I was always curious, is it a daily thing? Do you send up reports every day of what's going on down there? What exactly happens during the season?
Yeah. Communication probably at any level of any business, school, job is crucial. So, we have reports that go out. Our medical team is sending literally updates live to the groups via text or Slack or email or whatever it is. So we can always reference those. We're always constantly in communication. 7 minor league teams when you include the DSL teams. So there's always stuff going on. There's always stuff with prospects going on. It's sometimes good, sometimes it's bad, sometimes injuries. It's just an update on how somebody's progressing. And yeah, I mean, it's literally daily, Glenn. It's as soon as you wake up. Sometimes you're getting woke up by the phone usually, and then you go to sleep with it going off in your ear. And it's a part of the job. It's kind of it's a challenge, but it's also what makes it worth it is people are that involved and we're constantly communicating. And then that includes me. I go to all the teams. I visit you guys up in San Francisco and hope to see Marty in the dugout occasion whenever I'm in there. And
it's great to run into.
Yeah, try to run into people, but the folks on the ground at Papago are also doing that for me, and I'm doing it for others, and we're just trying to keep everybody in the loop as best we can without blowing their phone up all day.
Well, it's quite a job, really, Kyle. Hey, you've quite a job. How is it working with Randy Wynn? He's new, obviously. Great. Yeah, how is that relationship working out with you guys?
Well, it's been great because Randy. I've known Randy, 10 years or so at least. And he's done a lot of scouting. So his assessments of the players are always fantastic to see his takes. He can come to conclusions, on those guys really fast. I mean, that's pro scouting at its finest. And then he leans on his playing experience for some great, PD things and observations. And then, in general too, it's kind of fun for me because I've picked up a few things and he'll say, take me through this rule or something like that. And, I'm able to teach him after having to self-teach myself a little bit the last few years as well. So I think I'm learning from him. He's learning from me, and hopefully we'll continue that throughout the year. I'm sure we will. And his care is really high, and his baseball knowledge is as well. So it's been great. I'm learning him, he's learning me, and we're all learning the players together.
Well, you've been a Giant for a long time, and of course, you go back to the Brian Sabian era, Farhan, and now, of course, this. So you've been around a long time. You've seen a lot. Let's put it that way. And I'm glad to have you on here. I really appreciate it. A couple of names on my list that I'm going to be seeing in the next week or two: Carson Ragsdale and Carson Seymour. Those
Yep.
two, and now they're on the 40-man. Do they have shots here? Are they major league ready, or where do they fit in here?
I think if they were needed, they would more than hold their own for sure this year. They're not like these long. Sometimes you get guys that are really raw, right? When they added to the 40 in the offseason. These guys are definitely not that. I think they could help right away if needed. First of all, they're both big right-handers. I mean, for people who love big pitchers and big, strong right-handed pitchers, these are your guys. Both of them, physical presences on the mound, and then big fastball, big velocity, off-speed. Both have a chance to start if needed, which is a blessing. Carson Seymour kind of reminds me a little bit of Keaton Wynn a little bit, I think. Much more fastball slider, doesn't quite have the split. But Ragsdale, kind of the same thing. Big righty, mid, upper 90s fastball, probably in short stints, and plus off speed as well. So I think if they had to start, they're going to be fine. They'll hold their velo in the games. If they had to come in the pen, you're going to see mid to upper 90s out of both big, strong righties.
Well, they AAA ticketed to start pretty much.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they both finished in AAA last year. Carson Seymour was already there all year, and then Ragsdale split the year. But I would think they're destined for Sacramento. But I wouldn't be surprised if they grab some eyes in this spring training.
What about the first round pick from last year? Well, what happened with him? Tibbs?
James Tibbs. Yeah, James Tibbs. He got tired late in the Eugene. He flew through the system, came to Arizona, obviously a huge year at Florida State. And he went to San Jose, had a nice run there. Went ahead, threw another challenge at him, threw him up another level to hit with Bryce Eldridge in the middle of that order at the end of the Eugene season. And I think he was a little tired there at the end after that long college season compared with, the first pro. But he looks fresh here in January camp we just had. And, we're excited to see what he can put together because this guy has an advanced approach to the plate, left-handed bat. He's got a little bit of power there as well. So I think advanced line drives to all fields, occasional power, really good approach. That player that Oracle Park, tends to be a little more rewarding to is that player who's well-rounded and can go to all fields and do a little bit of everything at the plate, not just rely on power alone. Unless your name's Barry Bonds, just going over top of Triples Alley all day, it's not going to work. But James, he's a well-rounded hitter. Excited to see what he's going to do in this first full season.
All right. You mentioned Barry Bonds. Today, the mayor of San Francisco, did you see this, proclaimed today is 2/5/25, which, of course, is his number. And it only happens once. So today is Barry Bonds Day in San Francisco. Last year was Willie Mays.
Yep.
It was 2/4/24. So just a little aside that means nothing, but it's in my brain somewhere.
He deserves that.
Yeah. All right. Here's something that came up today in one of the Pacodas or prediction services. Only one player is predicted to hit 300 in the National League. That's Luis Arraez. And in the American League, the leading hitter is Yordan Alvarez at 282. What happened to where's Wade Boggs? And don't they teach hit the ball and try to get on base hitting it? Once in a while, you don't have to walk. You hit the ball. I think Dwayne says this. When you hit the ball, things can happen when you hit it. Good to hit it.
I think that, yes, you're absolutely right. But I do think, Kyle, I'd be curious to see. I mean, I watch games now, and I'm surprised that guys hit 260 with what's being thrown at them. I mean, it's ridiculous. Now, I don't know that it's healthy from a pitcher standpoint, but everybody says everybody's throwing 98 or 100. To me, the thing that makes it so difficult to hit, it's not the fastball. It's the sliders that are 91, 92, the splitters that are 93. That's unbelievable if you think about it. So to me, it's the secondary pitches, high velocity, that make it so difficult to hit, because guys will hit 98 to 100, but man, oh man, sliders and splits and splinkers, they all got different names now, but they're all high velocity. And until that changes, and I don't know that's going to change, I think it's going to remain very difficult to hit for a high average, just because it just sometimes putting the ball in play is difficult for guys. So I don't know, man. I mean, it's a pitcher's world right now with what they're throwing up there.
Yeah, I think when you combine that with pretty much all the data and technology that's been implemented in the game, it's mostly benefited pitchers, because, I mean, if you can't hit a ball in one quadrant of the strike zone, or if your hole is there, it used to be you had to observe it. Even recently, gosh, probably 10 years ago, it wasn't as clear, right? You see, or probably could see videos of Greg Maddux talking about reading hitters, and that's how they found where holes were. And now, literally, somebody can just hand you a chart and say, if you throw this fastball here and this breaking ball here, this hitter never hits it. So it just comes down to execution, right? So a lot of the data in the game has really helped pitchers. It's helped them identify where their strengths and weaknesses are and stay away from the weaknesses and leverage their strengths better. And it's a lot less guessing for the pitchers. And then obviously you're challenging, one of the hardest individual skills that really pushes the limit of what humans are capable of doing, taking this stick and hitting this object that's moving at you. But also, I think the strike zones are also smaller than ever too, which I think, give credit to the pitchers. This strike zone keeps shrinking. It seems like, if a ball is 1 inch outside, it's balled. I used to see rookies get balls this far outside call strikes, and they wouldn't even allow to look at the umpire. The umpires are better than ever. The bats are better than ever. But the baseball fan in me too, we didn't help by making these ballparks a lot smaller than they used to be. And pretty much every ballpark's small. So now the outfielders are moved in a little bit more. If you're in Yankee Stadium, that right fielder's playing pretty shallow. So the line drive, the outfield doesn't play as well. So you might as well try to hit it over his head, because that's probably easier than trying to drop it between him and the infield. So I think the ballparks are smaller. The data, all that adding up has created this mix where, it's not as lucrative to be a line drive hitter. And I tend to think high average guys are going to need to be left-handed hitters with high speed. And, we don't see a lot of those guys, a lot of those Ichiro hitters where it's, line drives, they can beat you with their legs, etc. It's hard. It's incredibly hard to hit line drives at that rate. It really is.
Well, it makes me think of Meckler. I like Meckler. Yeah. We call him the Mecklamator, and he had a little trouble defensively in spring training, I think last year or the year before, in center field. But, the guy puts the bat on the ball, and he does find holes with it. Give me a little something on Meckler.
Yeah, he's kind of what we talked about. He can run a little bit, lefty, high bat to ball. I think when I think of high average guys, I think of Stephen Kwan from Cleveland. And, Wade Meckler went to Oregon State just like Kwan did. A lot of similar comps there. Let's hope that, he turns out to be like that. I think last year injury bug got him early in the year with the wrist. But, he rebounded really nice, and he's a scrappy, hard-nosed ball player, very tough. I think this could be a guy that could, to your point, break out a little bit this year as that high average, high energy player. He could bunt for a hit here and there if he needs. He'd be that scrappy player. He struggled with the off speed his first go around the big leagues, but I think probably every player does. To Glenn's point, that's probably the bigger challenge than the fastball velocity for a lot of the young hitters.
Yeah, Meckler seems like it'd be a great guy to have playing every day in AAA, and if you need him, and hopefully he's playing well there, well, then you get him up, and you got an energy guy too, at the big league level, if somebody gets hurt. So guys like that are important, because there is some energy there that you can tell he brings to his game. I don't know that we saw that in his time in the big leagues, because he was struggling and there was a lot going on when he got brought up. But hopefully he could just relax a little bit, play every day in AAA, and be ready to get called up. I mean, that's the best case scenario for the Giants.
What happened to the kid, the outfielder? He had the bad knee. Remember in spring training, he was this phenom, and remember he was in Double-A, and then something happened to him. Who was that kid?
Are you talking about Von Brown?
Yeah, Vaughn Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember they put him in, and he was great, and all of a sudden he got hurt, and we never heard from him again.
Yeah, he's battled injuries the last 2 years. He's missed a lot of at bats. He's really struggled at the top Double-A level, but he's over. I actually saw him yesterday. He looks healthy as ever, so that's going to be a great storyline in minor league. Is can this guy stay healthy on the field and shake a lot of that rust? Because he was, I mean, he brought back Hunter Pence vibes when he was playing there 2 years ago. I mean,
he reminded me of that Durant from Boston. I mean, the kid could fly. And then he got hurt, and we never really heard from him again. So let's talk about the system. Senior director of player development. How is the system looking to you? A lot of guys who rushed up last year's that should be coming up maybe this year. But how does the overall system look to you right now?
I think we're thin. I mean, I think we are. I think we called up a lot of the guys at the upper levels. To your point, I think. Don't get me wrong, Wisenhunt's there. We do have options. But I think our starting pitching is kind of, I won't say deep, but when you include Harrison, Birdsong, the Roops, the Wisenhunts, the Blacks, the McDonald's, that's a strength of ours at the upper levels, and there's some others throughout the other levels. I think we're deep in outfield prospects, but I think we're getting really thin on the infield. We're putting a lot of eggs in a couple baskets at the catching and in the infield spots where, we need some guys that we are excited about their potential to just jump up and be the guy and get out of the group of guys that we're hoping will break out and somebody break out. So I think we're thin, but I think, especially the really low level kids, there's some high ceilings in the youngest group, which is not a great place to live, by the way, is on your youngest levels. But I think most of the ceiling is going to be in your Wisenhunts, your Eldridges, your Tibbs, Dakota Jordan. I know we haven't mentioned him yet from Mississippi State. It was a fantastic find. You can keep naming some other names, but before that, then you're going to get to the rookie ball level before you start naming those ceilings of the guys you dream on really breaking out and being these huge prospects.
How about the international prospect? It sounds like he's for real. Adames was talking to him down in the Dominican. That kid sounds like, wow, get him up here.
He's got a lot of tools. I guess first of all, I'll say, let's hope everybody realizes he's a long ways away from ever playing at Oracle Park. He hadn't even played in the Dominican Summer League yet, but he's got a lot of physical tools and the power, speed, switch hitter, shortstop, really, really good package to work with, and also just a phenomenal young man. Very, he came in to get his physical and sat down with him, and I've known him for a little bit. I've seen him try out and a lot of that stuff, and from the first tryout to now, his growth has been tremendous for a kid his age. So yeah, a lot of physical tools here. Very excited to have him, and he was played on the Dominican team, the national team, and he's got a lot of good experience too. So very exciting sign, and a fantastic job by our international scouting department.
Oh, good. Well, the lunatic fringe will be after him in about 4 months.
Move him up.
Any other questions, Glenn, for Kyle? It's really
it's great talking. It's always fun.
With spring training coming up, and now I'm ready, and I know what to look. Where is Eldridge going to be, by the way, in spring training?
Position-wise, or are you talking about big league camp?
Will he be at Papago? Will he be in the minor leagues, or is he coming into the big league camp? Where is he?
He's going to be in big league camp, I believe.
You'll get a laugh out of this. I told someone the other day, can someone send a message to Matt Chisholm so we can release the big league camp roster? That way everybody knows. But so I'm gonna give Chiz a little nudge there if he can help nudge somebody. But Eldridge will be in big league camp. Yeah, he'll be in Major League Spring Training.
That's great.
Oh, good. Okay. No, this is going to be fun. Great to have you on. Honestly, I look forward to it. It's Marty Lurie and Friends. We're just talking ball. And I really like doing this, and I'm very happy to have you on. You got great reviews, and people are very excited to hear from you. So thank you so much, Kyle.
Yeah, it's
Nah,
great
no.
seeing you, Kyle.
Yeah, you too, Glenn. And you guys come around Papago anytime. We'll walk you around again and take it in.
Yeah.
I live for talking baseball and seeing those bats and balls and the sunshine out. I mean, this is what energizes us all, and sitting around talking with baseball with you and others is what I live for. So thank you for having me on.
I love it. No, we're thrilled to have you. Thanks, Kyle. Have a good
Thanks,
night.
Kyle. I'll see you in Arizona.
Okay. All right. Hey, that was pretty good.
Yeah, he's good. He's a good guy. I like Kyle. He bleeds orange and black. I mean, he's been in that organization a long time.
But it's the way he answers questions.
Yeah, yeah. And he's got a lot. I mean, you think about how many players he has to keep an eye on. I mean, he has people working with him, but it's a tough job. It's a big job. And there's a lot of pressure. You know, everybody wants, hey, we want good prospects. We want to see our guys in the big leagues. It's not an easy job for him. But he's a good man, and I wish him the best of luck. I hope that in the next couple of years he has. I hope Eldridge is a star, and I hope all his guys do well.
You got to give them players.
Yeah.
You give them players. They got enough real coaching to develop.
Right.
You got to. It's a scouting too that is very
Yeah.
important. Well, Alonso is still out there. I've done the show every week for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I said, all right. This week, the Giants are going to jump into this thing and get him for 2 years, opt out. Everybody's got to look at Jack Flaherty. He's a Tiger again. He's getting $25 million with an opt out. And can't they get Alonso, pay him $50 million?
I don't see it. I don't. I understand where you're coming from, and Marty, but I just don't know that he's. I don't know that he's what they're looking for. I know that may sound like, well, wait a minute, the guy is going to hit 45 home runs. I think they're looking for a different type of player. That's the way I feel. And if they're not there, then they're not going to sign somebody that doesn't kind of fit what they're looking for. That's not a criticism of Pete Alonso, but he's, I don't know that he fits what they want to what kind of team they want to build. I guess that's maybe the best way to say it. So I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I just don't know that he's the kind of player they're specifically looking for. I think they're trying to be more athletic because they feel like that being athletic is going to help them win more games in their ballpark. And they're not going to hit, they're not going to score. They're not going to lead the league in runs scored. They feel like they need to be more athletic. They need to be more creative offensively. They need to do little things better. And that, I think moving forward, they feel like that's the best way for this group to get to 87, 88, 89 wins. And maybe you sneak in as a wild card team.
Right.
That's just my opinion. That's why I don't know that they're going to do a lot of other things before spring training gets started.
That's the theme of the show. Is this it? Are we looking at it?
Yeah.
Is this?
I think it is. I do. I think it is. Anything that's done now would probably be a smaller deal. I don't see any other big things that are going to happen. I don't. And you know what? I like the team. And are they going to win 100 games? No. But I think they're better at short. They're better at second. Really the center fielder only played 35 games last year. He's, so you're almost getting a new player there as well. You have Robbie Ray the whole year. I like Verlander. The bullpen's fine. Listen, it's never what everybody wants, but I think it could be a pretty decent team. They just need to play better all around baseball. If they can do that, then I think they will be an entertaining team that pushes for a wild card spot.
Well, I've said this the last few weeks that with Posey and Randy Wynn and people like that involved and all the other people, they're not going to put up with bad baseball.
No, exactly.
They're not going to be worried about pulling in a guy from Sacramento and back and forth in the transaction wire and finding a diamond in the rough. They want baseball. And
Yeah.
if they get a guy who strikes out 3 times with a runner on third and less than 2 out, that guy's going to hear it. It's
Yeah.
not going to be acceptable. So I've said this on the show. I think we will see better baseball.
Yeah, I do
Now,
too.
Whether
I
it
do too.
translates into more wins, I don't know, because that depends on pitching and defense and and the luck
Sure.
of the game. But
Yeah.
but all these services predict 79, 78 wins in that area. It doesn't take much to get to 85.
No, I think they'll be better than that. I
I
really
mean,
do. I mean,
but
I just,
you got to play the games
yeah,
and see how it turns out. Pitching is the key for me.
yeah.
And let me ask you this. Someone asked me this the other day. If you had to invest money in a future, would you invest in Birdsong or Kyle Harrison?
Oh man, that's a tough question. Oh boy, I don't know. I really like them both. To me, they both have the same issue that they have to correct. And if they can do that somewhat, they're both going to be very good pitchers. They have to have a little better idea of the strike zone. When I watch both of those young guys pitch, their stuff is good. Their stuff's winnable, right? You can win with what they have, but there's too many pitches thrown that are wasted pitches.
Yeah.
They're nowhere near the strike zone. They don't tease the hitter. They don't do anything to help you in the count. And then the only thing they do is jack up your pitch count. And to me, that when I watch them pitch, it's like you got to throw more strikes. You got to throw more competitive pitches. There's too many non-competitive pitches that both those guys throw in a game that just doesn't do any good in the at bat except jack up the pitch count. And
All right.
they both have that problem. And if they
Where you
can fix
put
it,
your money?
probably Harrison,
Okay.
but not by a lot, because I think Birdsong, they're both similar to me. If they can just harness a little bit and not waste pitches, and the pitches I'm talking about, nowhere near the strike zone.
Yeah.
If they can just cut that down, then I think they both could take the next step. So
Yeah.
let's hope
Boy.
so. That would be a big deal.
Yeah. Well, Harrison can't pitch up in the strike zone. He's got to
Yeah.
learn how to pitch down, because
Yeah.
that's when home runs start.
Yeah.
And Birdsong's got a great arm. It's a tough question. It really is.
Sure. But it's also it's a nice problem to have. You have two young pitchers that have a chance to go to that next level. It's up to them. They need to fine tune a little bit, but they're also two really good young pitchers. And they're nice to have. It's good to have those guys.
I just to finish off on Alonso, because I do it every week. I mean, you flip that order and you got Jung-Ho Lee, and then maybe Ramos, and you got Adames, Alonso, then Chapman.
Yeah.
You flip that lineup and you're not going out to get a beer.
You're stubborn. You're stubborn, Marty, aren't you? You're stubborn.
If you look at teams that hit a lot of home runs,
yeah,
they generally do pretty well. And the Giants could use a little more power. So I'm not giving up until Stephen Cohen signs him. I'm not, and I don't think he's going to Toronto. I don't know.
No, I think he'll end up going back to New York. I do. But listen, he's a terrific player. There's no doubt about it. I don't see him coming to San Francisco before re-signing with the Mets. It just doesn't seem like that's the route that's going to happen.
No, but they're pushing him. I don't know why they're. New York, you don't do that to people.
That's true. That's true.
This is very unusual for a New York team to nickel and dime a guy.
Yeah, I know.
They want you.
Shouldn't be that way.
No, you've been in New York enough. You know what it's all about.
Yeah. It shouldn't be that way.
The heavenly birthday of Henry Aaron, which I thought I'd throw out to you because you grew up obviously in the Milwaukee area.
Yeah.
So,
I remember him when he went back to Milwaukee to play for the Brewers.
Yeah,
for 2 years, 75 and 76, and he was immensely popular even when he went back at the end of his career. So he's the hammer. He's the hammer.
Awesome. Been 91 today. Wow.
Wow.
Well, I want to thank you for being on. I love having you on. I hope you're on as much as you can make it.
Absolutely. I want to be on with you all summer again. It's great talking to you. So
yeah, I like talking ball. It's
great.
fun.
Arizona spring training next week. That's exciting. I'll be there the 23rd of February, Marty. So I'll be there for a couple of weeks. So.
Yeah, that's my first show is that Sunday, the 23rd.
Perfect.
So,
awesome. All right, Marty. Thanks for having me on. I
well.
appreciate it. All right. See you.
Well. All right. All right. That is the great Glenn Kuiper. Great to have Glenn on with me. This show is brought to us by Rick Robin. Rick was going to be with us tonight, but with all the rain up in the North Bay, and he's got his hands full up there. So we do have his commercial that we like to play, and we're going to hear from Rick Robin right now.
It's been a pleasure working with Rick Robin this year. Rick Robin, ROBBEN, NapaConstruction.com. Rick, the last time you were on with us, you told us about kitchen and bath remodeling, but there's a lot more going on up in your area.
Yes, there is. ADUs, auxiliary dwelling units, which are known as granny units. We can do your existing garage, attached garage, even building a new unit in the back. And so what we do is come out, bring our architect out there. Such a great thing. No sewer hookup fees, no water hookup fees. So that's what we do.
Rick, how does one start the process with you? How does one get in touch with you?
Oh, you call Tammy, 707-332-7575, 7 days a week.
Rick Robin, ConstructionNapa.com. Rick, the thing I like about this, no problem for me. You come out with the plans, the permits, everything is in-house, no fees, and you get a new unit that you can rent out and get money back on your investment right away. I like it, Rick.
Thanks, Marty. Love talking to you.
Rick Robin, Construction, Napa.
Yeah, we'll have Rick on next week. We'll get him on. But there's River Islands will be part of the sponsors, Original Joe's. We have Mardi Gras, and I know we have a lot of people listening tonight, and people listen to the show during the week. Mardi Gras is set for April the 3rd, and already I've sent out emails to the folks who've come in the prior years, and I think we got 60 or 70 people already. So if you're interested in Mardi Gras, which is a great dinner, it's April the 3rd. It's at Original Joe's North Beach at $65. And you get salad, you get the entree, you get antipasta, you get other hors d'oeuvres and things like that, and a drink. And it's terrific, and it sells out right away. So if you're interested, send me an email, Marty Lurie, Lurie at yahoo.com. And then I'll get back to you, and if you want to come, we'll get you on the list. So Mardi Gras is coming up on April the 3rd. A couple of baseball things that I wanted to mention tonight. One, I really liked having Kyle Haynes on. I think he's very direct and gives you a real understanding of where the strength is in the Giants farm system. Left-handed pitching, he's got Wisenhunt in his back pocket there. But as far as lefty relievers, it's kind of interesting that Taylor Rogers is gone, and they really don't have anyone who's ready to burst through. Middle infielders, they're a little light there as well, but Eldridge is a good deal. He likes Huff, and we'll see if Murphy is healthy at catching. And they got a ton of outfielders, and Matos is the key for me. He's still a kid, and he had a very big winter league in Venezuela, so we'll see what he does in spring training. But Bregman is still out there. I don't see him becoming a Giant. Dwayne was on KMBR today and mentioned that. By the way, my show on KMBR is every Sunday. There'll be a 1-hour show, and it just depends on the time of the game. And then we're on usually 3 or 4 hours before the first pitch. Harrison Bader went to the Twins. Tim Hill, a Yankee. Colombe, I think the Twins. I think I saw that. Laureano, the outfielder, he is signed. Grichuk is back to Arizona, and I like Grichuk. I thought the Giants were going to make a run at Grichuk, but I guess he's a left-handed hitting outfielder, and like Kyle says, they're loaded with lefty hitters. The umpire Pat Hoberg. We'll talk about this next week. Oh, all right, Dan. Thank you, Dan Cocomiglio. We love Dan. Dan and I will be on together next week as well. Pete Alonso is going back to the Mets. per Jeff Passan. All right. Well, I'll have to find something else to talk about. I think the Giants missed the boat on this, but who knows? Maybe he didn't want to come here at all anyway. But Dan, I'd like to hear what kind of money they're throwing at him or what the contract is like. But thanks, Dan. I appreciate that. The umpire, Pat Hoberg, was fired. He has a buddy who's a professional gambler and a poker player, and he shared a betting account with him. And the other guy was betting on baseball and all sorts of stuff. And Hoberg used it apparently to bet on things, not on baseball, but on other sports. So they suspended him for a year. And it looks like he's finished there. Fay Vincent, the former commissioner, who was very important in 1989 when the earthquake happened here in San Francisco in the World Series. He passed away. And we can do a whole show on Fay Vincent. When Bruce Jenkins is on with me, we'll talk about Fay Vincent and what he meant to baseball. And finally, the Warriors got Jimmy Butler. So that's going to be interesting to listen to Damon and Larry and Dan on YouTube. And of course, Pop during the week. He's probably at the Super Bowl. I haven't figured that out yet. But Carlos Carrasco back to the Yankees. I got that. And so that's some of the baseball news this week. But Pagoda, 1-300 hitter, whatever, some service that does the predictions, 1-300 hitter in the National League, Arise. And the Padres would love to trade him. And the Padres, well, that's another thing we'll talk about as the season goes on. See what happens with them. The Dodgers, have Yates, and they're signing everybody in the world. And Brazier, who was a good right-handed relief pitcher, went to the Cubs today because they had to make room for Yates. But the Padres' ownership is a mess, and we'll see what happens there. Arizona's a team to worry about, I think. Dan says 2 years and an opt-out, he'll make $30 million this year. Okay. All right. Jeffrey says it seems like the Giants may want a player like Anthony Rizzo, older player, good character guy to show the younger players how an MLB professional is. Yeah, it makes sense, Jeffrey, and we've talked about it on the show. Someone asked me about Rizzo last week, and I said, nah. But then I thought about it, and I said, all right, if you want a guy off the bench who could do that. But as Glenn said, Glenn Kuiper, and I think he's right, Buster Posey and the crowd, they're not looking to add on older players like that. Now they did with Verlander because they needed a pitcher, and he's a Hall of Famer. But they're looking for, as Glenn says, for speed and a little more youth, I think. So we'll have to see. But is that it? Is that all they're going to do? Willie Adames and Verlander. So Ryan, fabulous job. Ryan is the best producer in the business. And we love doing these shows. Please subscribe, and then you'll get a notice when we're on. So please do that. Like and subscribe on YouTube. And then we'll try to do one a week, and I'll be out at Scottsdale next week. So that's our show for tonight. Thank Glenn. Thank Kyle Haynes. And everyone for being with us. I think I covered everything on my list tonight. And Rick Robin, of course, Rick will have you with us next week. So have a good night, and I will talk to you. Take care.